Now it's time for another edition of What Would Jello Do? Forget all the theatrics on one side of this ugly yin and yang coin, where one person's almost anointed our inevitable dictator, and won't that be wonderful? Even before the theatrics over this weekend. There's another big elephant, donkey in the room that we can't forget about. It's just like the old Soviet Union. When Brezhnev was obviously really enfeebled and about to croak, the official Soviet line from Tass et al. Was, he has a bad cold. Brezhnev expires. He didn't die, he expired. Old head of the KGB, Yuri Andropov, assumes emperor position in Russia, but within a year or two, he has a bad cold. And then Brezhnev is dead. And so then, in the early days of CNN, when my parents first got cable, this was hilarious, Andropov dies, and CNN has a Soviet news person in a newsroom on the other end with a shaved head, very long, on these earphones that looked like Easter egg shells and stuff, talking about the new anointed General Secretary, Konstantin Chernenko, saying, he is a very dynamic leader, blah, blah, blah. Split screen to Chernenko doddering around inside the Politburo or the Duma, barely aware of where he was. But of course, just like Dirty Donnie's fantasies, the emperors in Russia, including the current one, they love their military parades. And Chernenko was known to suffer from emphysema. And so there he is, along with all the guys in their uniforms, up on top, behind the Kremlin, waving at all the tanks and the missiles. Yeah, that was my friend John Greenway's imitation of the time. He did it better. Well, now, what do we get but that absurd so-called debate where one guy gets interrupted every time he's trying to get his mind together in a sentence, while the other guy gets to lie without being challenged by the debate so-called moderators, where we've got our president, who already is known to have age issues, just looking on kind of like a fish trying to get water into its gills. Just so President Biden, now he's got to be dynamic at the summit and everything. What's their excuse for the debate? He had a bad cold. Gee, I wonder where that came from. More and more people, for very good reason, are begging Biden to do the right thing for the country and to save, literally, our democracy and be a statesman, like President Lyndon Johnson did when he pulled out of the race in 1968 after losing one primary to an anti-Vietnam War candidate named Senator Eugene McCarthy from Minnesota. Next thing you know, Bobby Kennedy jumped in, and we know the rest. If McCarthy had gotten nominated instead of Humphrey, then maybe Nixon never would have been president, especially if Sirhan hadn't pulled the trigger. So now, what do we do about I'm going to fight. I'm not going to give up. It's mine. It's mine. White House is mine. I'm the only one who can beat Trump. The only one who can beat Trump? Where have your brain cells gone? That's where they've gone. So there's all kinds of wacko suggestions. It's too late to change candidates this late before the election. Forget it. In the UK, they just overthrew right-wing jackasses looting the whole country after all these years. And the election was 6 weeks, 2 months or less after the Prime Minister called the election? Same thing happened in Canada and so many other European countries. That's what a parliamentary system is. The election season is short and everybody gets focused, everybody gets into it, everybody votes, and you don't get inundated the whole rest of the 4 years about who's gonna be the next president. That's why our system is so ass backwards here. But what do we do? It is not too late to switch candidates, but should we really switch candidates? Somebody, I think it was from Slate, said the thing to do was for Biden to resign as president right now. Kamala Harris becomes president, so then she's kind of the incumbent, but names as vice president Barack Obama. Constitutionally, that is permitted. And it also means that he could not, if he had to assume the office, if something happened to Harris, he could do it constitutionally because the Constitution says a president can't be elected for more than 2 terms. That does not cover getting into office some other way, which Trump is all too well aware of too. I think there's a much, much better way that nobody seems to have thought of but a Bush League punk rock musician, and maybe you should listen to this one for once. Here's how to save the candidacy, our democracy, and not let Trump get back in. President Biden, please be the statesman of history. Let your accomplishments not get all destroyed like what happened when Ruth Bader Ginsburg wouldn't retire in time. This is what you should do. Don't resign as president, and don't withdraw from the race. Just do what Nikki Haley did on the Republican side and show some class and release all your delegates. So it's an open convention. They're daring other people to run against you, knowing you have all the delegates sewn up. But if you don't have them sewn up, release all the delegates, and you keep running for president too, along with other people who may feel they're a more dynamic, more on the ball person than you are, which they may well be. But here's how to do it. If it's an open convention and you still run, and you run like hell and passionately and get out there and somehow get around, there's a real good chance, whether some of us like it or not, you will still get nominated in an open convention, but you will be nominated and going forward from the convention from a position of strength. Not everybody wringing their hands that you're too old and too out of it to serve another term, let alone make sure Trump doesn't serve another term and another term and another term. That's how you can run from a position of strength and have people putting themselves on record again that they want you. They want you instead of being stuck with you. That's the way to rescue your campaign, and it's a hell of a lot better way to do it than staging a fake assassination attempt.